The 8BitDo Ultimate 2 just launched, and 8BitDo is known for making some amazing controllers, so I want to take a look at this and see whether or not it stacks up to all these amazing controls that we have out there. Now, before we look at the actual controller, what it has, what it comes with, I want to kind of quickly talk about the items or the features of this controller. One of the biggest things when it comes to making sure there's low latency or you get quick responsiveness is the polling rate. So this controller has a 1000 Hz polling rate. That's how quickly, or that's the amount of time the information is sent from your PC to the controller or controller to the PC and vice versa, stuff like that. Making sure every button, everything you do is being transmitted to the computer or into the game. This also has TMR joysticks, so that's kind of a step up from Hall effect joysticks, which are known for a lot of people that have controllers like the Dualsense or the Xbox controller. You know, when you get the stick drifts, Hall effects was kind of the next step up that kind of prevented that, and now TMR joysticks are the next step up from Hall effect. They're supposed to be more responsive, less prone to wear and tear, and overall just a better package when it comes to joysticks. So it's a big step up that 8BitDo has included that in this controller. They have a couple of extra buttons on the bumpers or near the bumpers itself, and also a couple of back paddle buttons. So I know a lot of people that want to be able to kind of do some macros, shortcuts, stuff like that within the game. They always prefer having these extra buttons. I myself don't really use them as much, or have not found a lot of games where I use them quite a bit, but I know that's something that people want, and it's included with this package. And of course, it has a 2.4 gigahertz dongle that is connected to your PC, or you can obviously use Bluetooth as well. Of course, 2.4 gigahertz will give you the lowest latency, no input lag, or at least close to no input lag kind of gameplay. So that's the preferable method. Of course, you can also go wired, but it's good to have all those options. One of the cooler things that I actually did not know about until I got this was that it has a charging dock included. So you have a charging dock that obviously matches the controller, looks really nice, place it on it, charges it, take it off, it automatically connects to the PC, and we'll kind of go over that more in depth as I test it out. So all that being said, let's actually go and take a look at the controller. So the first thing you probably notice are the RGB lights around the joysticks itself and also around the power button. They are customizable. You're able to kind of go into the 8BitDo software, change it around. You can kind of play around with it where, you know, when you are pressing it onto one side, you might see it here a little bit on this in this video. It kind of turns like a little purple. So you have kind of these options where you can kind of play around with the RGB, customize it based on kind of what you need. Even with the triggers, when you click on the triggers, you'll see it sorry, it's kind of messing up my PC at the same time, so I'm making sure I'm not pressing anything wrong. But when you click on the triggers, you'll see the lights kind of go up. You know, when you kind of push it all the way down, it looks kind of cool. It's up to you. You can customize it. The other thing, as I mentioned, were a couple of bumpers or a couple of extra buttons on the top here. They're called L4 and R4, left 4, right 4. You're able to kind of customize that as well, depending on what you're playing. I can imagine you using this if you're playing a game like World of Warcraft with a controller. A lot of people do that. I do that as well sometimes. And you can kind of assign a specific key to this. You can also assign certain kinds of macros. This can be useful in a lot of RPG games or anything that require you to kind of press multiple buttons at the same time. Similarly, on the back, we have these back paddle buttons. They're quite clicky, which is surprising. Like really easy to press. I feel like I should say that. Like when I click on it, I can kind of feel it. I can feel myself playing a game and just kind of clicking on it really quickly and getting what I want. I'm not really someone that's used to having back paddles, and I don't use them a lot in general. Just because, I don't know, I just find it kind of awkward, or at least I haven't found a game where I really needed to kind of do that. But if you are someone that uses these, it's there. You have these extra buttons, you have these extra buttons on top. Same with these, I've never really used them, but I do kind of like how clicky they are. We'll talk about the triggers in a little bit because that's kind of my main gripe right now. But it's quite clicky, it gets the job done, it clicks on the things that it needs to click, which is awesome. Same thing with these joysticks, they feel really good, they feel comfortable, even when I'm pressing on it and everything like that. They don't feel like too loose or anything like that. They feel, or not too tight either. It's a good kind of set that way. Even with the D-pad is great. I'm really excited to kind of test this out on fighting games because you always need a good D-pad. You know, when I compare it to things like the Xbox controller or even like the 8BitDo 2C, which has kind of been my main go-to controller for a while, these feel a little bit more clicky. It's very similar to the 8BitDo 2C, but it is quite clicky. I used to always think that the DualSense controller, they had the best D-pad for a while, obviously until I started using the 8BitDo stuff, and now this is kind of my go-to. And last but not least, for these controllers, one of the key things that I feel like a lot of people might use, especially in competitive gameplay, are these quick trigger modes that you can kind of basically switch it to this mode for your triggers. And when you click on it, it just turns into a button basically. So it's basically allows you to kind of play any competitive gameplay. You don't need to travel all the way down to be able to. I know it's kind of blurry here, but let me just kind of get that. There you go. Okay. You don't have to press it all the way down. If you just press it all the way here itself, just to kind of dismount, you kind of get the response that you want from the game. Let me just kind of show you how it is. Normally it kind of goes all the way down there with the trigger or this rapid trigger mode. It just goes up to there and it turns into like a button click. It doesn't even feel like I'm pressing on a trigger. It feels like I'm just clicking on a button instead. Now, one of the cool things is that this controller comes with a dock. So this charging dock also has, let me open this little mini compartment. It also has the USB-C dongle, the 2.4 gigahertz dongle for the controller. So you can take this out, put it directly into your PC if you want, or you can just leave it here and connect this dock directly into the PC and it will basically do the same thing. This is kind of the receiver. I kind of prefer having like this because, you know, I connect this dock directly into the PC. It does the job. Plus this way I don't need to use up another spot for that dongle on my PC, which is already quite limited. And then the cool thing with this is obviously, as you can see, the controller's on, I'm playing games, whatever. Oh, battery's running out. Put it in, it automatically switches off. So you don't need to hold the power button or anything like that to switch it off. It just turns off on its own. You might notice a bit of RGB lighting on the bottom there as well, which is kind of cool. But then, hey, I'm ready to play. It's charged up. You take it out and it just starts up automatically, which is really great. I love this. Is something that I just find really cool. Like maybe other controllers are already doing this, but for me, this is kind of the first controller I've seen do this. I love how quick that is, that, you know, it goes into off, it's charging, and I want to play, I take it out and it's good to go and we're ready. It's all connected. Now that we had a look at the controller itself and everything that it kind of has to offer, I want to do a quick comparison to some of the other controllers that you might be considering. This controller is $59.99 USD, which is on par with the cost of a Xbox One controller or Xbox Series X controller, whatever you want to call it. And it's around $10 or so cheaper than a Dualsense controller. It is also $30 more expensive than the Ultimate 2C controller from 8BitDo that has kind of, you know, at least in my opinion, rocked the world in terms of what a value controller is. It is, in my opinion, one of the best controllers you can buy for that price. So it is a hard sell. When you add $30, you get some full RGB lightings, and of course you get the dock. But of course I want to make sure that we are comparing these two. There are obviously more features on the Ultimate 2 with the buttons, with the RGB, with the dock itself, and the weight is also a little bit heavier than the Ultimate 2C. Now comparing it with the Dualsense is a little bit heavier. I know it has the whole haptic feedback and the triggers and all that stuff kind of in there, that technology, so I can imagine that that takes up a lot of the weight of the controller. It's also a very different kind of playing the games or playing any games that you want with the controller, just because of the way that the stick placements and the overall kind of ergonomic of this. So if you're typically someone that plays with these types of controllers, it might take a little while to get used to something like the 8BitDo. But just in terms of comparisons, you know, build quality wise, it's very similar. The 8BitDo, it feels very premium, so it's not like you're being shortchanged or anything like that. The Dualsense also has a little touchpad here and the 6-axis motion control. This has the 6-axis motion control as well. You can kind of use that if you're playing an FPS game, stuff like that. I have no idea how people do that, but it is an option. But of course, if you're someone that kind of wants the touchpad, you won't have this in this controller. Now, comparing it to the Xbox Series or Xbox One controller, weight-wise, it's pretty similar. It does feel quite similar to me. I can imagine that a lot of the weight on the Xbox controller is also because of the battery pack that you put in, the batteries that you put in the back. And other than the triggers for the Xbox controllers having the rumble, which the 8BitDo 2 controller does not have, the overall kind of feel that you get from an Xbox One controller or a Series controller, I keep going back and forth between the two, but Xbox One or Series X controller, you'll get that same kind of feel with this. Just a little bit lighter, almost the same kind of weight-wise, and in my opinion, at least having a more tactile kind of clicky feel to it, which I kind of love. You know, you can imagine I have a clicky keyboard behind me, so I'm someone that kind of likes that feedback. So just keep that in mind if you're someone that doesn't really like that kind of a feel. And of course, comparing it now to the Nintendo Switch, the Pro Controller. The Pro Controller, I know a lot of people love, but I'm not someone that is one of those people, just because I'm not a big fan of the triggers in the back. The triggers have no kind of depth, nothing that kind of presses all the way down. I mean, I just spoke about how we can kind of do the same thing for this controller, and I appreciate that that's useful for a lot of people when it comes to playing competitive games, stuff like that. But it's something about the Pro controller when it comes to, if you want to play any shooter games, anything like that, it just doesn't have the right feel in my opinion. It feels good in your hands for sure, but the joysticks don't feel really that good. They're not Hall effect. Same with the DualSense and the Xbox controller. None of them are Hall effect or TMR joysticks, so you might be prone to having stick drift issues where you might have to get it repaired or just buy a new one, which is not, you know, not fun because it's really expensive. And button wise, same thing. Like the buttons do feel good on the Pro controller, but it's still not as clicky and tactile as the 8BitDo 2 controller. Now before we jump into some gameplay and kind of looking at how this controller plays for different styles of games, I did want to test out how the dongle works in terms of distance. So I obviously play here in my PC room with the PC here, so it's really close by, you know, so it's not really a distance that you should be worrying about. So I did test out the distance for the dongle with the PC that's connected to my TV outside, and I sit around 5 feet away from the TV itself, and I've had no issues at all. It worked as expected. There was no latency, no lag, anything like that. I didn't feel like I was missing any button presses or anything like that either. Overall, a very smooth experience. Same thing, you know, I connected to the dock outside, I take it off the dock, connects to my PC immediately, and I jump into a game immediately as well. So now that we've covered all of that, I want to quickly look at a couple of games where I feel this controller can be tested, and it can also help guide you in terms of what you play and whether or not this controller will be a good controller for your style of games. So for my testing, I want to test this out in fighting games to check out how the D-pad works. I want to check it out in FPS games to see how well the triggers work. Similarly, I also want to test out the triggers in racing games to see how precise they are. So if you are someone that plays sim racing style games like I do, you want to be able to trust in these triggers when you're pressing only halfway down. You want to make sure that that's kind of what's being registered on the game itself, and whether or not it's a good feel when you're playing a game like that. And lastly, of course, playing single player games, because as much as we have these different types of games that we all play, I feel like we all kind of jump into single player games with these controllers to make sure that we're being immersed. So I want to test out how the vibrations work in this, how it feels when I'm playing a game like a single player game, and kind of see how everything feels with that, and whether or not there's any issues with responsiveness there. So let's jump into testing out some of these games. Alright, so we're jumping into Street Fighter 6. This is my go-to fighting game. I'm playing with M. Bison. I obviously do not know any of the moves, so I apologize ahead of time. But I just kind of want to see how it feels, just kind of in terms of me moving around. You can kind of see on the left we have like the inputs popping up. I'm just kind of doing like a quick circle motion on the side to kind of see the input coming through. It's coming in as expected. The buttons feel really good. Like as I'm just kind of going left and right and clicking on it. A cool thing is if I press any button left, right, wherever it is, you'll notice the RGB here kind of light up. I know it's kind of getting a little blurry, but you kind of see it light up there, which is kind of cool. Again, it has cool kind of look to it. It makes it feel a little premium. It makes it feel a little bit flashy, but we care more about the gameplay, right? So just kind of, I'm just gonna press random buttons here just to kind of see how this feels. I wish I remembered some of the moves so I can at least show you all something, but it's been a while since I've played with M. Bison. But yeah, overall, like, it feels really good. There you go, that's what I'm talking about. See, was it down? Oh no, that was something else. Okay, I'm all right, there you go. All right, okay, we're getting this. Yeah, there you go. All right, I'm going back. So automatically, yeah, I can easily see this being, yeah, this is actually really good. I'm really surprised that I'm able to kind of do the circular motions so quickly or so easily with this. I honestly thought it would be a little bit harder, even with this, because I don't typically use the controller when it comes to fighting games, especially if I want to try to do some combos, stuff like that. When you're playing with friends, it's a little different. All right, there you go, okay. There you go, okay, see? The quick circular motion, and I get that hit. So you kind of see, obviously I don't remember everything, but automatically, like I said, it feels really good when it comes to doing any circular motion. All right, there you go. We're gonna do a special. There you go. I hit that as well without any issues. That was awesome. Circular motion with a kick. Let me try to do it again. There you go. Okay, perfect. And it feels really good. It gets the input. That's what we want. So now we're on F124. I think this is a good game to kind of be able to show you how these triggers work in racing games for precise racing games, right? If you're playing a game like Need for Speed, anything like that, I think any controller that way will work with it and will do what you want to do. But in games like this, where you do need to be able to kind of have some control over your acceleration and the brake, like kind of like really precise control, you want to make sure that the triggers do what they're supposed to do, and also have a good kind of feel when you're pressing into them. You don't want it to be something that presses in too quickly. You also don't want it to be something that presses in too hard or takes too long for you to press down. So of course we gotta go with Ferrari. Let's go with the Japan Grand Prix circuit, and we'll try some of this out. All right, I'm just gonna bring it to a full stop here. Obviously, we'll ignore anything in relation to me messing up the track or whatever. But I just wanted to kind of go slowly and just kind of show you. You'll see on the bottom right, and I'll kind of make sure that this is highlighted. Bottom right, where the green bar is going up, that's the acceleration. So I'm just gonna press really slowly into the trigger and see how it feels. And overall, it's not bad. We're accelerating really slowly, as you can tell. This is typically not the speed you would be playing at F1 in, but I just want to kind of slowly bump it up, see how that feels. Okay, overall not bad. There was a slight jump there where it kind of jumped a little bit higher than I wanted to do. Okay, I'm going a little crazy here, but okay, let's keep going. Okay, so we're gonna reach a turn here. So let's see how I'm gonna hold the brakes and just kind of slowly accelerate back up. And I mean, honestly, so far it's really good. It's pretty precise. I was not expecting this because I have tried playing F1 using the Ultimate 2C controller with 8BitDo, and I did not enjoy it. I did not like it. I felt that the triggers were not working the way I wanted to do, and it would just kind of have these weird jumps where I would press a little bit and it would jump to kind of like all the way high up. Maybe that's something I could change in the software. I'm not sure. I haven't looked into it, but it just did not feel good. So I really did not have any high expectations for this. But my expectations are shattered a little bit with this. This is really good. Obviously, any mistakes I make are all me, but I'm just kind of saying that in terms of the precise control you would want in a game like this is really great. Like, I'm just kind of holding it midway, and I feel it midway, and I can see it on the left that it was also midway. Obviously, let's do a little turn, and I'm just gonna slowly accelerate to a good point. Okay, I'm kind of midway right now, but I only see it at really low, and now it kind of jumped up. Okay, so there you go. That's the same problem I noticed with the Ultimate 2C, is that it's not as reliable as you would hope. I would sometimes be pressing on it at a level where I feel like it's half, but it won't be. And if I press on it a little bit more, I would see it jump half, like to that half marker and a little bit more. So in a game like this, it's not ideal. Right now I'm pressing it all the way down, but you can kind of see the green marker there is kind of flickering a little bit. So it's not really all the way at the top. It could be my controller. I do want to bring that up. It's very possible that this controller that I have in my hand might be the issue, but that's a little disappointing. I feel like I don't take everything back because it was feeling pretty good, but seeing that obviously is kind of disappointing because I like playing games like this on a controller on my couch sometimes. I don't like jumping in a rig every time. Sometimes I just want to sit back and play a racing game. I was hoping that this might be the control that can do that. I might actually kind of do a return on this and get a new one to see if this is just my control that's having this issue. But let's assume that that is my controller, right? Let's just go with that. It does feel pretty good. If it works how I want it to work or how I thought it was working initially, it's pretty good. It's pretty accurate when I'm going halfway, and it stays halfway, which is great. I'm pressing all the way down. It doesn't feel like it's going all the way down now, which is really weird. I definitely think it might be this controller, but when I press all the way down, I'm assuming or hoping that it would go all the way down. You're obviously able to kind of change the distance of how much these triggers are pressed down, or how much you want it to kind of be pressed down until it reaches that maximum amount. You can go and do that in the software. I obviously want to do it out of the box because not everyone wants to jump into the software and mess around with it, right? You want to kind of be able to jump in, start playing, and yeah, it's up and down. I would say that if it does work as expected, not bad. So now we're going to jump into a bit of Call of Duty. this is a perfect kind of a game to test this out, test this controller out, test out the triggers, how they work. I know a lot of people will want to use these, especially those rapid trigger settings. I almost dropped the controller. Those rapid trigger settings that we have for this controller. So I'm going to test it out and see how it plays. Now when you are playing Call of Duty, especially on the PC, you typically will prefer using a mouse and keyboard. But obviously, you know, there are times when you might want to just kind of sit back. If you have your PC connected to something else, you want to use a controller. But to each their own. Just kind of wanted to put that out there. I know this is an unconventional game to be testing a controller out, especially on the PC. But I want to just cover all my bases. Alright, so let's jump in. I haven't played this game in a while, so I apologize in case that, you know, in case I'm bad. Already the sticks feel interesting. They're a little too sensitive. That's kind of weird. I'm pretty sure I haven't changed anything settings wise. So this is just out of the box. Obviously, you know, I'm sure we could go in and change everything, but just me pressing on the sticks a little bit seems to really push my view around. Okay, I see someone. Oh, nice. Okay, that was, as you can tell, the aim was not the best, but definitely trying. Okay, my aim with the controller is not that good, and it doesn't help that the sticks feel really, as you might notice, just kind of like the way my view is kind of going left and right. It's a little jarring. It does kind of move a little too much, in my opinion. Oh my god, I nearly died there. I will test out the rapid trigger really soon. I just want to keep playing like this for a second. All right, let's get this person. Wow, that took a while. Got them though. I mean, once you get the hang of it, it's very sensitive, right? So once you get the hang of it, oh wow, it does become a lot easier to kind of control the view. There might just be a learning curve with this because of the type of joysticks they are. These are TMR joysticks, like I mentioned, they're supposed to be more precise. So that could be a reason as to why they are the way they are. Oh wow, my aim was all over the place. But as you can tell, it's a little tough. I'm going to switch to the rapid triggers. So now they just turn into little clicks, and let's see how these feel. Okay, I already like that. I just click a little bit and I go into position. I go into aim pretty quickly, so I kind of like that. Okay, wow. I mean, I died either way. I didn't see that person, but the rapid trigger was. I kind of like this. I've never played a game like this. Not having to travel that much is pretty cool. I mean, you can see that my aim is terrible, so the joysticks haven't really... Oh, there's someone behind me. The joysticks really haven't improved, in my opinion, or haven't really given me that confidence. But the rapid trigger stuff is pretty cool. I can easily see myself, especially if I get used to the joysticks. This could be something that I use primarily when I'm playing. Obviously, I will primarily use my mouse and keyboard. I doubt I will be playing it like this. But I like the option. That's pretty cool. Alright, so we're going to jump into Avowed. This is a single-player game from Xbox, from Microsoft. And I want to kind of test this controller out using it on a single-player game. It's a first-person game. It's an RPG. I know that a lot of times when you're testing a controller out, you're looking at more competitive games, something that really pushes this to the limit. But I feel there's a lot of people like myself that do play a lot of single player games, and you want to make sure that the game or the controller and what you're playing with is quite immersive. Right off the bat, the sticks feel a lot better and more responsive the way I want it to be responsive than how it did on Call of Duty. So when I'm turning, I'm just going to slightly turn to the right, and exactly it's turning right the exact amount that I want to turn right. It's kind of going through it. I want to see how the vibrations are, stuff like that. A lot of people might not care too much about that, but at least for me, I feel like when you're playing a single player game, things like vibrations and all that stuff, they do kind of have an impact to a degree. That's kind of one of the reasons I love the Dualsense controller. The haptic feedbacks are awesome. And I know a lot of people might not like that, but at least for me, for single player games, I think it's pretty good. Alright, okay, we're getting into a fight. mean, so far it feels good. The aim is as expected. Let me switch to my shield and my little dagger. Let's see. Vibrations are pretty good too. They're not super subtle or like super light or anything like that. They're also not too overpowering, which is great. It doesn't have any trigger rumbles or anything like that, so you might be missing out on that, but it still does a full vibration that you would want from the controller, which is awesome. I do like the idea that we have those additional kind of buttons. I might, use that to maybe put the potions there, maybe put something else there, some other items or anything like that. So I kind of like that idea, especially for an RPG game like this. I don't know if I would do it. I feel like I'm pretty okay with how controllers are laid out, but I can easily see that being something that's quite useful for a lot of people. Yeah, the buttons feel really good. I like the buttons. I like how it overall kind of feels. I really like the vibration the more that I'm kind of playing with it, because sometimes with the Xbox controller, I feel like the vibrations aren't as, not that they're not good, but they just feel a little off. Sometimes just feel like a little generic. Not that this one feels like, more immersive, like what does that even mean in this specific case, but it's interesting because I feel like I can feel some of the more subtle hints of the vibration when something small or subtle happens. That vibration, that amount of vibration comes through. I do miss the trigger vibrations that you get in the Xbox controllers. I can easily imagine, especially because I'm using the trigger so much, that they probably have that through this if you're using an Xbox controller, so you would probably get that feedback. It's kind of like the haptic feedback for the DualSense controller. It's not something that, I need, need. It's like, yeah, cool. It would be awesome if it's there, like, sure. But if it's not there, it's okay. And we also have to remember the cost of the controller, all the other features, things like that as well. Back to my dagger again, just to get the feel again. Yeah, no, I mean, this feels awesome. Like, I can easily see this controller hooked up to my outside PC, and this becoming my kind of go-to single player game, because that's kind of what I use my outside PC for. I typically just use it for single player games, and this is pretty awesome. I like this. So since we're here, I want to quickly go over the software, the 8BitDo Ultimate Software V2. This has obviously, kind of like you can see here, you can update the firmware for the controller and obviously the dongle that's with it. But more importantly, the thing that we obviously want to look at are the profiles, so that we can kind of customize the colors and all that stuff. So I'm going to quickly jump into a test profile here. You kind of see here that they have a mapping. You're going to change the mapping if you want, what's kind of been assigned to each of these buttons. You can switch things around if you want. I'm not sure why you would do that, but hey, to each their own. You can also have macros. This is kind of what I was mentioning about using the outside the buttons, so the paddles, and also the buttons at the top. And if you have specific things, specific inputs like up, down, left, right, and I don't know if that helps with something in the game, you can kind of assign that to these controllers, to those buttons, and then that can help you in the game possibly. So this is just kind of the sticks. You can kind of see, you're able to kind of change the dead zone. Usually because you have Hall effects, or in this case the TMR joysticks, they're typically not as prone to having issues like the normal joystick you would get in controllers. So, but it is something that you can kind of change if you want the dead zones to be further out, to be really close in, whatever you kind of want. If you want it to kind of not go as far as you want, like I said, it lets you kind of play around with this as much as you want. You can also invert the axis, anything like that as well. Going to the triggers, you can kind of see, you can test out the triggers. So you click it all the way in, it goes all the way to 100. I'm going to turn the rapid triggers on. Same thing here, you click the button, it goes immediately to 100 as opposed to kind of going through that entire distance. You might notice it's something that we saw in F1 in the testing. The right trigger, at least my right trigger, isn't working as expected. It's not going all the way to 100 all the time. So it does seem that this is kind of the defective one. So I should kind of, I know we went through the whole F1 thing, and I stick by it that if these triggers do work as expected, you can actually use this controller for any competitive racing style, sim racing style games. Obviously a wheel might be better, but you have the option. You can test out the vibrations. You can kind of tone this down, tone it up if you want. Very standard vibration, what you would expect, exactly how it is. Of course, the RGB, this is kind of the cool thing. You can kind of change the colors. You can make it, let's see what this does. Background RGB, not sure what that does. I'm not sure if that's changing anything, but let me check this out. Firing, okay, look at that. So you can kind of change the colors and it kind of just keeps, it's like an RGB thing just kind of circling around. That looks pretty cool. Not really something you're going to be noticing, because you're going to be playing a game, you're going to be looking up at the game, you're not going to be looking at the controller, but like I said, it's a little flashy, it just kind of adds to it, you know, justifying the high price. So this is obviously the setting area for the motion control. You can kind of choose what you want the motion control to be kind of doing, if you want to emulate the right stick, if you want to do the left stick. So it's pretty cool. It has dead zone compensation, sensitivity, all that stuff. Like I said, it's not something that I typically use, but I like that it is there for anyone that wants to use it. For me, it's pretty tough to kind of be able to do that on Splatoon, anything like that on the Switch. But I know a lot of people that do that competitively and play really well. So as you can tell, the 8BitDo controller has some ups and downs. It overall is a pretty complete controller. But I know if you're someone that's playing this competitively, stuff like that, you know, like it's not... Hey. Excuse me, how did you get in here? Me? Oh, I'm Highbrow Hank. I'm the one that looks after all these consumers, making sure that they're making the right purchasing decisions. Okay, thank you, but like, what are you doing here? What's happening? Did you just gloss over the fact that your controller came with these trigger issues on your right trigger? Okay, so yeah, the triggers were an issue in my case. As we saw in F124, the right trigger was having issues. It was either registering like not enough or a little too high than what I was kind of pressing on it. This is something that I'm sure can be fixed, or I can return it and get a new one. You should not be having to go through this, especially if you just buy a brand new product. But as we know, with any tech product that we buy, there's always a risk of something like this happening. What about the fact that this controller only works with the PC and with other Bluetooth devices? Okay, sure. So yeah, you can only connect this to your PC using Bluetooth or the 2.4 GHz dongle, or obviously any other Bluetooth device like the Steam Deck, your phone, stuff like that. So it is limited that way, but that's kind of how it's been marketed. This is a product that's meant for your PC or for those Bluetooth type devices, but it's not meant for your PlayStation or your Xbox. 8BitDo does have their Xbox variants or Xbox controllers that you can connect to your Xbox. They also have their Switch versions or Switch variants that you can connect directly to your Nintendo Switch. Obviously, those variants are not of this Ultimate 2 product. This Ultimate 2 product is obviously only for the PC or for Bluetooth devices. I'm sure in the future they will have an Ultimate 2 Xbox version or an Ultimate 2 Nintendo Switch version. How about those vibrations? Do they not feel as good as other controllers? Do they justify the price of the controller? Okay, yeah, so the vibrations were like a little hit or miss. Like it wasn't bad. It was doing what it's supposed to. But of course, it's not something that's kind of as spectacular as, let's say, the Dualsense. If you're someone that has been used to Dualsense controller and are used to that kind of haptic feedback coming through, then yeah, you will be disappointed with this controller. Similarly, if you're someone that likes those trigger vibrations that you get in the Xbox controller, yeah, you won't find that here. But it doesn't mean that this isn't a good controller overall. When it comes to immersion and those vibrations coming through for that immersion, it does a great job. How about those TMR joysticks? Why are they so jumpy all of a sudden sometimes, huh? Yeah, so the joystick jumping stuff, yeah, like, okay, it's not perfect. It was weird. Maybe it's because it's very accurate, because that's the whole kind of point of the TMR joysticks. They're meant to be more precise than Hall effects or the regular joysticks we get. It's something you have to get used to over time, which is expected when it comes to any controller, any new tech. So far with me, it was a little jumpy. I had to kind of get used to it in Call of Duty, whereas when I was playing Avowed, I was good. So it might just be a simple issue of me turning the sensitivity up or down, something like that. Those additional buttons, are they really that good? Do they do anything? Huh? Do they do anything? So the additional buttons are not something that I typically gravitate towards. I just don't particularly find any use for them. I know if you're someone that likes having macros or anything like that set up for your controller, so you can just press something on the go and it will do a whole set of moves or whatever. It is great that way. It's a good option. I like that the option is there, and the clicky feel isn't that bad either. I personally am not someone that kind of really push for this controller or tell you to kind of purchase this controller because of those extra buttons. You've been sidestepping this for a while, but how is this in comparison to the Ultimate 2C by 8BitDo? Yeah, look, the Ultimate 2C is amazing. I love this controller. This is my go-to controller right now. I also have the Black Myth Wukong edition, so it looks really cool as well. I just overall love how light this feels compared to the Ultimate 2, and also just kind of the way it places in my hand does not mean that this will be the controller for you, right? This is kind of the whole thing with controllers, with anything that requires you to kind of assess it based on your overall ergonomic situation, whatever you want to call it. In my specific case, this works really great, and obviously the price being $30 is just so hard not to just go for this. If you like the flash and everything with the rings and the lights and all that stuff, the RGB, yeah, sure, you can go for the other one, but this is just so good. Toodles. Okay, gotta call the cops. Hello? Yeah, I think I just had an intruder just come in my house randomly. I was just recording a video. Oh, description? I mean, looked pretty good. Had really nice hair. Had kind of a weird mustache on him. But overall, I would say it was like a really chiseled, good looking guy. Pretty muscular too, I would say. Like, you know, pretty big in stature. Yeah. Yeah, no, if you find him, just, you know, make sure that that's the description. Muscular, big in stature, good face. Mustache, not good, but otherwise very good face and everything. And nice hair. 8BitDo's Ultimate 2 controller is overall a great controller. It does what it needs to. It's kind of flashy with the RGB and everything like that. Has some awesome new buttons and all those placements and everything like that. The rapid triggers. The dock, that is pretty awesome. Just quick plug and play. You just pick it up, it connects to your PC automatically, put it back down, shuts off. But for $59.99, it's kind of hard to justify, especially when you have a controller like the 8BitDo Ultimate 2C that has most of the features that you see in this controller. Obviously doesn't have the gyros or anything like that, but I don't really use most of those things, and I'm pretty sure most of you that are watching, you don't use any of that either. This being $59.99 and then Ultimate 2C being just $29.99, I would steer towards the $29.99. You can basically buy two of those for just one of these. Similarly, when comparing this to something like the Xbox controller overall has some great compatibility. If you have an Xbox console and a PC, the Xbox controller makes more sense. You can kind of play it both on your Xbox console and on the PC. If you're someone that has a PlayStation controller, you're kind of out of luck. I mean, this is not really gonna connect with your PlayStation or anything like that. It only has Bluetooth, so you can connect to any Android devices, stuff like that, or even your Steam Deck. But this is primarily meant for your PC. The color options are also kind of lacking. They have the black, white, and the purple options at the moment. The Ultimate 2C has a wide variety of options, and also have some cool collaborations like the Black Myth Wukong edition that I have. So I like that the Ultimate 2C has those options. I'm sure we'll be getting more colors and more kind of collaborations with this one as well. But just out of the box, it's kind of limited right now. If I had to kind of rank the controller that I have right now in terms of just kind of my gameplay, which is mainly single player games and how immersive I feel, it would still kind of be the DualSense controller, as long as the game has all the kind of haptic triggers and feedback and all that stuff. Let's go with a game that has it, then the DualSense controller at the top. If it doesn't, then right now it will be the Ultimate 2C. The controller is just perfect. It's very light. It does what I needed to do. It has all the vibrations, stuff like that. Nothing that I'm missing. And it's such a good price. After the Ultimate 2C, I would put this one on there. I really do like the D-pad for this one. I don't feel like I'm missing too much with it with the Ultimate 2C. The Ultimate 2C still does a good job. This one's a little bit more clicky, and playing fighting games on this was pretty good, so I might kind of keep doing that just for fighting games. But I'm looking at it as a controller that I'm going to use for everything. And then, you know, so for that one, it is kind of coming up to number 3. And then of course it's the Xbox controller, not because it's a bad controller, just because overall, you know, it's very standard. It does what it needs to do. It's kind of limited in terms of what I can do with it in terms of customization, and it does not really have any additional features, kind of like the DualSense. Like I said, if we remove the haptic feedback, all that stuff from the DualSense, then the DualSense will also be the Xbox / the DualSense in terms of rankings. It will be the same place because it will be a very standard controller. Of course, the last one for me right now, at least, is the Switch Pro controller. I typically use it just to play stuff like Zelda or Mario, stuff like that on my Switch. I don't really think about using that controller for anything else, and definitely do not think about using that in any competitive way. So I hope you enjoyed that video. Please let me know what you thought. If you had any comments, stuff like that, any questions about this controller, I'll be down in the comments below to help answer anything. And I hope to see you next time. Bye.